going. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us today. Excited to have you all for our final webinar of this fall webinar series that we've been doing at the Stu Clark Center. Excited to have you here today and to be talking about co-founders and building a team, a really interesting and fun conversation to have to kind of end off this series. So just a couple housekeeping items and Zoom etiquette reminders before we get going. Video is optional. However, please stay on mute throughout the webinar. We would greatly appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments throughout the webinar, please just drop them in the chat as we've done in previous webinars, and we'll get to questions at the end for Q&A. If you do have a question, but you don't want to type the whole question out, that's totally okay. Just drop the letter Q in the chat and we'll get to you at the end, and we'll invite you off mute to ask your question. Last but certainly not least, this webinar will be recorded just as we've been recording all of them, and will be uploaded to our online resources section of our website so you can access later. So if you need to step off the call early, that's totally okay. You can feel free to catch up another time and watch the recording, or if you find it valuable, want to rewatch or share the link to anyone else that you might know of that might find this valuable, please go ahead and do so. You'll be able to. Quick introduction on myself. My name is Joshua Zapperzan, and I am the venture coach at the Stu Clark Center for Entrepreneurship. I graduated from the Asper School of Business in December of 2016. As the venture coach, I get the awesome opportunity to work with students across the university to help them build their businesses and talk about entrepreneurship and help them bring their ideas to life. Myself, I'm also an entrepreneur. I've built and sold a company. I also work as the Manitoba Market Manager for the League of Innovators, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Young Associates here in Winnipeg as well. I've built businesses with co-founders. I've led teams. I've hired employees. I've fired employees, unfortunately. So I am excited to share some of those experiences with all of you today as part of this topic. Quickly want to just introduce our Stu Clark Center team, our awesome team. Deborah Jonason-Young, our director, Lindsay Friesen, our program coordinator, Leah Mickelson, our office administrator, and myself as the venture coach. If you have any questions whatsoever about the Stu Clark Center or about how we can help you on your entrepreneurial journey, do not hesitate to reach out and connect with any of us on the team. Our website is umanitoba.ca/entrepreneur, and follow us on Instagram at Stu Clark Center. We've got a lot of cool and exciting new initiatives coming up in the new year and also in December as well, as you'll see on the next slide here. So go ahead and make sure you follow us to stay up to date on all the news. With that being said, I wanted to ask all of you, who here likes Starbucks? I can't see you all, but I'm going to assume that most of you are putting your hand up or nodding along and that you do like it. So awesome opportunity, easy opportunity to get entered to win a $100 Starbucks gift card. And it is very easy to be entered. All you have to do is book a meeting with me, the venture coach, in the month of December, and you will automatically be entered for a chance to win a $100 Starbucks gift card. So we'll be giving one away to one lucky winner that's met with me. So I'll talk more at the end of the webinar, more so about the venture coach, but Leah is going to drop in the chat the link in order to book a meeting with me on our website. So all you got to do, log on. You all have a Startup Tree account already, which is awesome because you've registered for the webinar. So book a meeting with me this month and you might win. Quick reminder before we get going here. If you missed our 6th webinar, Marketing Your Startup, where we talked about building a brand that people love, you can watch the recording on our website. And to do so, you can find it on umanitoba.ca/entrepreneur. On the left-hand side, there's that online resource section tab, and you can scroll down there and see all of the recordings from our webinars and see any latest news and updates on upcoming webinars as well. Okay, so today is all about co-founders and building your team. I'm going to be talking about what I think is arguably the most important part of starting a company. And that's about finding the right co-founder and building a team. You'll hear me say a few times that people and employees are probably the most valuable asset that any company has. And so making sure you have the right team, the right people, and treating them well is super, super important to any company's success. So today we're going to briefly talk about solo founders or co-founders and the question of, what is the right path for you? We're going to then dive more deeper and spend most of our time talking about co-founders. So why co-founders, what to look for in a co-founder, where to look and find that co-founder, what to do once you've found a co-founder and how to structure that, what's important to note there. I'm going to talk a little bit about an advisory board, something that I think is super important and overlooked by a lot of entrepreneurs. Briefly talk about hiring your first employee, kind of when and how, and things to keep in mind for that. And then I'm going to give you my top tips for building out your team as a startup. If you've joined us on previous webinars, I always love to start by learning more about all of you. I'm going to launch a quick poll. I'd love to just know if you're an entrepreneur or not. The poll is completely anonymous. Would love your participation and your feedback and to hear and see who we have on the call. So I'll give you a couple seconds to fill that out, and then we'll get into it. Awesome. Seeing lots of responses rolling in. Good mix. Give you a couple more seconds. Cool. 2 more seconds. Any last minute entries? Okay, let's have a look at the results. Share the results. 56% no, but you want to be. Awesome. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Hopefully this will help you on your entrepreneurial journey. And 44% of you said that you are. So cool. Nobody here that specifically isn't, which is awesome. So happy to have all of you here. And hopefully this webinar will provide you some great insight onto your entrepreneurial journey and help out. There's always a statement that I make before any speech or webinar that I do, and that is that I don't have all the answers, and nor do I think anyone does. I don't know everything, but I've learned a lot through some of the experiences and businesses and entrepreneurship that I've been a part of. And I want to share with you all those lessons that I've learned. So by no means am I claiming to be an expert on co-founders and for building a team, but the goal of today is really to share my real world experiences and hopefully draw a connection to your entrepreneurship journey and help answer some of your burning questions about co-founders and building teams. So let's dive in. When starting a business, it's difficult to know whether or not you should start as go it alone or seek out a co-founder to help you navigate all the complexities of this process. And it really is a process. It can be difficult at times. It can be difficult to find a co-founder. It can be difficult to decide if you should build a business on your own or with someone. But that difficultness of this, it's normal. And these things take time. You don't want to rush these decisions because they are super important. And the answer really of what is right for you, it's going to be different for each and every person. It's going to be a matter of what your personality is, what your business goals are, what's working style that you have. And that's really going to ultimately influence which decision you go about. So many successful businesses, both solo and multiple founders have happened. It's not a matter of what's more successful and what can be more successful. It's at the end of the day, it's about what's best for you and your business. Do you work well with others? Do you lack certain skills that you need to accomplish this vision and this business that you're wanting to build? So there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it right from day one about whether it's right for you to go it alone or to find someone. And whatever that answer is, it's a good answer, and it's whatever you think needs to be best in order to help you accomplish your mission and vision of the business that you want to build. The big thing to note in terms of this conversation is really that this takes time. Don't rush this decision. It's a big decision to decide whether or not to build a business on your own or with someone else. And there's a lot of moving factors to consider, which we're going to talk about specifically if you want to build or find a co-founder to build your business. But this is an important question to consider right from day one about what works best for you and how you learn and work best. So let's start by talking about why you should have a co-founder. I'm a fan of both having businesses with co-founders and solo founders. I think they both are awesome, as I kind of mentioned on the last slide. But today's focus of the webinar is really about trying to provide some insight to you of maybe why you should consider a co-founder and really what the value and benefits are of them. I personally think that there's 3 main reasons you really would love to have a co-founder when you're starting a company. And that first one is productivity. You can get a lot more work done if you have someone to divide the work up with. And you can get much better work done too if you have a co-founder who has complementary skills than you, so that you can get things that you can't get done. And there's always someone there then, to enjoy discussing ideas with. You can brainstorm, come up with better ideas than you could potentially alone, or just having someone to talk you out of potentially a bad idea is always great to have too. So you get a lot of uplift in just the amount and quality of work that you can do with a co-founder. So that's kind of my number one main reason. The second reason is for moral support. Startups are such an incredibly intense and taxing journey. And it's great to have someone you can lean on for support during tough times. And what I've noticed about the best co-founder relationships is they have this dynamic where both co-founders, they kind of balance each other out. So if one founder is having a bad day, they're feeling a little bit down and they've become a little pessimistic, the other co-founder can just help them up and bring them up and lift them up a little bit and keep them going and keep them motivated and keep them going towards that shared mission and vision of your building your business, and vice versa. I find that those best co-founding relationships, they help even out with some of the highs and lows of that emotional roller coaster that is in a startup. And while you can get sort of, productivity increased by hiring people or by bringing on contractors, you don't get that same level of emotional support that you do from a co-founder. Because ultimately, anyone that's working for you, you're the boss, and they're not as invested in the success of the startup as you are for the most part. Sometimes they are. And you can't really be as open and honest with them sometimes about the company as you can be with a peer. And that's really what you do get from a co-founder. The final reason is this idea of pattern matching to success. I'd say to have a co-founder, if you look at a list of most successful startups in history, think Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they all had co-founders when they started. And now I think sometimes people forget about this at this point, because when you think of these great iconic companies, you associate them with a single person, usually the CEO, who's over time risen to become this prominent figure and more of a celebrity status. When you think of Apple, you think of Steve Jobs. When you think of Microsoft, Bill Gates. When you think of Facebook, you think of Zuckerberg, right? It's completely true over time, and we're talking decades because that's how long successful startups are around for. But over that period of time, it's common for one person to kind of really drive the company and become that figurehead for it to stick out in public. And that's why we remember those people. But today, we're talking about the earliest stages of starting a company. And in those days, all of these founders had co-founders that they lent on for reasons that I mentioned. So I think it's always important to remember that when you're starting a company and you're wondering whether you should have co-founders or not, look at what other companies have done and how they've structured co-founders and partnerships and the value that they've brought. It's always great to look at what other businesses have done and replicate what they've done in terms of some of those items. And all of those successful businesses, they've had co-founders. They've had those complementary skills in order to really help them start and grow that company. If there's one main message to take away from today that I really would love to stress in terms of co-founders, it's that co-founders and business partnerships are like a marriage. They really are. And you have to date before you get married. Super, super important. It is not a decision to rush into. You want to be able to know the person. We're going to talk about this more in a second, but super important to kind of think about it as this massive legal relationship. It is important to know who you're going to be working with for a long time, and you're now connected and tied to them as a co-founder in your business. It's not something you want to rush. It's not something that you want to impulsively just decide who your co-founder is. These things take time, and they're important decisions to make. And that is really, really important, and one of my main messages to you all today. So when you're thinking about bringing on a co-founder, what should you be looking for? So here are some of my top questions to consider about your co-founder. I actually think that the single most important thing to know about someone before you start a company with them is how they handle stress. And it's kind of second most important to that is how well are they going to help you handle stress? And the reason I say that is because startups are very incredibly stressful. They're intense experiences, as I had mentioned before. And a great co-founder should be able to support you through those and help you through those. Are they someone that's going to stick around when things are tough? Are they someone that's going to help you when you need that extra help or that guidance or that motivation or that inspiration to keep going? So the best people to start companies with are usually people you've already have some type of personal experience with, because you can gauge that. And, it's super important to understand how they react to certain situations. The second thing I really want you to look for in terms of understanding co-founders is, do they share the same goals, vision, and values as you? What's the reason they actually want to get into business and have a startup? I think it's really important to talk with someone, even if you know them already very well, about why it is that they want to go into a startup and start a business. What are they hoping for? What's their vision? What's their goal? I'm not saying that having this conversation means you're going to know for sure whether your goals and values are aligned over the next decade, for example, because it's fair. People's goals and visions, they change. They can change over time. But at least having that conversation gives you a better chance of finding a co-founder that you're aligned with on those high level things right from day one. Now, you're probably wondering, I'm talking about what you should look for in co-founders, and I haven't really mentioned those obvious things, such as what skills do they have. And so it is really important to have a co-founder who has the right set of skills to help you grow the company. And usually that means finding someone who's got complementary set of skills to you. But more importantly than anything is working with someone that you like working with and that you can trust. Skills can be learned, and I think that's an important part, is you really finding a co-founder that's willing to learn, willing to grow with you and themselves in their entrepreneurial journey, and from a knowledge perspective as well. Rather than finding a co-founder that just has the technical skill set or the complementary skills that you need, I'd rather work with someone that maybe doesn't have 100% of the skills you need, but they've got that better personality. You mesh with them better, you work with them better, and they're willing to learn, and they can learn those skills that they need to learn in order to help grow. So I think that's really important. And it's a really important concept to think. It's easy to think of only the obvious things, such as I just need to find someone. Maybe you're a business student who has marketing experience. You want to build an app or a piece of technology. So you want a tech co-founder. So, as long as someone just checks the box of having coding experience, then you're going to bring them on. It's easy to only think about that, but it's super, super important to think about, how do they handle stress? What are they like in different situations? Can they make decisions? Do you trust them? Can they be honest with you? Can you have candid conversations? Are they willing to learn? It's super important not to just look at those complementary skill sets, and really look at that full rounded individual as someone that you're going to work with and that you're going to like to work with for the next however many years. Could be a long time. So don't overlook all of those other points is really kind of my main message here. Complementary skills, but it's super important to think about everything else that's associated with co-founders. So let's look at where to find potential co-founders. And this is a common question that I get asked a lot of, and it's super difficult to answer because it takes time. And I think the biggest point to note here is that this takes time, and don't rush it. Don't expect to find someone overnight that you can just have as a co-founder. But really, where should you start? And the answer here that I'm going to share with you is a little bit obvious, but it's to start with people you already know. Ideally, your friends, colleagues, and I'll even say that ironically, I think some of the best times to find a co-founder are when you're not actually necessarily seeking for and looking for a co-founder to start a company with. But talking to people that you already know, based on what I've said on the last few slides, if you talk to people that you already know at the beginning, then you know about maybe how they handle certain situations, how they react, how they're able to make decisions, what their personality is. So starting with people you already know is the best place to start. And being in school or in university is an ideal time for this, because you're surrounded by lots of people with complementing skills, but also similar interests. So network, meet others, connect, talk to classmates, talk to people you already know. And when you talk to someone that you know, it's totally okay if they say no and then maybe they're not interested in starting a business with you or working with you, but ask for referrals too. Referrals and introductions to other people that maybe they know that might be an even better fit too is another way to start. And it's a great way to, again, keep that conversation moving and building a pipeline of potential people to reach out to, not only to have as a co-founder, but maybe even an employee one day. Again, start with those people that you know. Join networking groups. Young Associates is a great example here in Manitoba. And look at places where there's similar interests and complementary skills. So for example, if you are an engineer or you have this technology background, maybe it's about going to different events or hackathons or anything virtually like that. So you're meeting people in places that have similar interests to you, but yet they still have different complementary skills that maybe you don't have and that you need. So it's super, super important. If you're a business student, go to events such as, for example, like the Young Associates events. Everyone there has these similar interests in terms of young professionals and business minded or what whatnot that might look like, but yet they still all have a variety of vast diversity from a difference perspective, an education perspective, an experience perspective, and a great place to find those complementary skills. The final sort of bit of advice I'd say for where to look is just to go out and meet people and talk to other entrepreneurs, talk to co-founders, ask them about their journey, ask them where they found their business partnerships and relationships, and learn from them. I think that's such a great way, is just to talk to others and learn from them and their journey, because you really can learn a lot. And again, it's this whole concept, and we've kind of mentioned this in almost every webinar, but it's not necessarily always about reinventing the wheel. It's about looking at what else is being done, what are other businesses doing, how have they been successful, and learning from them and replicating it. And I think finding co-founders is a great example of that. So really being open-minded, taking your time, putting yourself out there, meeting people with similar interests so that you're already on neutral ground, but yet complementary skill sets, places where you see even personality or you know them, is really a great place to start looking for co-founders. Even within the workplace, maybe you're not in school, but look at coworkers. That's a great way too to see how they respond and react in certain situations. So really always be keeping that mind of building that pipeline of potential people that you could reach out to as well. Okay, so let's assume that you've decided you want to have a co-founder for your business. You found the right person. You've went on a couple of dates, so to speak. You know that this is the one, this is the person that you want to get into a business relationship with. What now? How do you go about actually structuring a partnership? And I think that these are really tough conversations to have, but they are so important to get on the same page and aligned from day one, once you have found that co-founder that you really do want to start a business with. Priority number one is to align your goals and visions for the company. Make sure you are aligned from day one. It is very easy to forget and not do all of these things that I'm going to show you on this slide, and instead just go straight to building the business and working on actionable items, and push these conversations to the side. But they're super important from day one to get aligned, get on the same page, and make sure you're both working towards that same mission and vision and goals for your company. It's important to discuss what each of your roles are and your responsibilities and ways to hold each other accountable. Now, as you've gone through the process to find a co-founder, you've already decided that, yeah, you trust them, you know them, you trust them to work on their own. But it's still important to discuss, okay, here's what I'm going to be responsible for. Here's what your responsibilities are going to be. Let's work together. We'll hold some accountability to each other. And really having that conversation is super important, so that you're aware of what each other are working on, and you're not working on the same things, and you're bringing those complementary skill sets to the table. The next one, and this is the one that I've found and I've seen is sometimes the hardest conversations to have, is about ownership structure and what is fair from both perspectives, and to getting some type of agreement in place. It's so easy and it's so common, and I've seen it. Unfortunately, entrepreneurs, they get partnered together, they work together. They don't talk about ownership structure from day one. One of the entrepreneurs is thinking 50-50 split. The other one is thinking 60-40 split, but they never really communicated that to each other. All of a sudden, they're starting to work on this business. Cool things are happening. They're excited. They're doing lots of work. And then this conversation comes up around ownership and actually putting this together legally. And now you find out you're not on the same page. Feelings get hurt. Partnerships get torn apart. So super important to be aligned from day one on ownership structure, what that looks like, what is fair. It's not about necessarily getting a legal shareholder agreement in place and spending a bunch of money on legal fees. You can find templates online. You can just jot things down on a Word document, but have it written down, which leads to my next point. Write it down and have something there that shows that you've talked about this, you've had that conversation with that co-founder, and you've agreed to it. Super important. It's a tough conversation to have, but unfortunately, if you delay that conversation, it really can derail partnerships down the road. Write everything down. Even if it's your friend, it's in the best interest of everyone involved. Make things legit. Put it on a Word document, put it in a legal document, whatever the case might be. Don't feel, again, like you need to spend thousands of dollars on legal fees to structure a partnership, but write things down just so that there's a paper trail, and just so that you know that everyone is aligned and agrees. The last thing that I'll kind of mention is decide on company structure and titles. Another big one that I've seen is, it's easy to have that conversation where you say, oh, we're just both going to be, it's early days in the startup. We're just going to both be working on everything. So we don't necessarily need to appoint a CEO and whatever. We're just both doing everything and running the business. Don't. From day one, decide who the CEO is. It's super important to have that structure. Some people, as again, kind of I mentioned in that other example, sometimes businesses have a little bit of a celebrity figure if they do become really successful, and that usually is the CEO. So if someone just wants the CEO title because of they want that potential celebrity status that day, that's an important conversation to have early on. And you want to know, because maybe that's not the right fit or the right reason to be a CEO. You need someone on paper and within your team who can take the lead and make some of those tough decisions and work together as a team and really help guide that. So having that conversation of maybe who that CEO is or who that lead is really important. And again, the earlier you have the conversation, the better, because if you don't have it from day one, it just becomes harder and harder and can really derail things in the future. These are difficult conversations to have. They really are, especially if it's with someone that you know and that's a friend and you're worried maybe about your relationship with that person outside of your business and professional relationship. But I can't stress enough how crucial it is to have these conversations from day one and have them early on. I want to quickly talk about advisory boards because I think these are one of the most overlooked pieces of people and teams in the startup. And advisory boards are really something that adds huge resources and credibility to a startup's team and really fill critical gaps in your startup's expertise and experience. And they add this huge amount of credibility to your team when you're going out to raise capital or you're going out to sell products or whatever the case may be. But having a team of individuals, they don't need to be equity shareholders. They don't need to be compensated or paid, at least from day one. They don't have to be. Down the road, sometimes a lot of companies will give equity to advisory boards. But from day one, it's really just about finding a couple people that have a bit more experience. Maybe they have a little bit more industry knowledge and they can help fill those gaps. And they can be those people that you lean on, again, when times are tough or when you have important questions to ask. It's about, hey, I really need some insight into this industry, or how do I go about hiring my first employee? Maybe someone on your advisory board leads a big team and can really guide some insight into that. Super important to have those people to rely on. And there's so many people, especially in Winnipeg and in Manitoba, so many people are willing to help others. And I think that's super important. And that's an important message to come across because so many people will help you, will help entrepreneurs. It's sometimes intimidating to reach out to others and to ask to be, an advisor, but a lot of people will say yes. And if they don't, that's okay. It's respectful and you can always find someone else. Advisory boards don't need to be a huge amount of people. They can be small, but focus and be strategic on who you're asking so that they fill kind of, again, those gaps and those complementary skill sets that you and your co-founder don't have. So the last couple of things here, let's talk a little bit about hiring employees. And I think this is super important because, again, same as co-founders, this is something that you do not want to rush. It is super, super important. The old saying, and you've probably all heard it, but about hire slow, fire fast. It is so, so true. And you don't really realize it until you've actually been in the game and you've experienced that. But it's also important to know to hire when ready. Don't rush the process. Right from day one, you don't need 5 employees. In fact, Airbnb, they spent 5 months interviewing their first employee before they hired someone in their first year. And they only hired 2 people in that first year. And that's Airbnb. We're talking about a pretty big, successful company. So my big message here on this slide about hiring employees is to hire when ready. Don't rush it. You think you have this great idea that everyone's going to come join, but that's not how it works. Recruiting takes time. And that's one thing that founders always underestimate is how hard it is to recruit. And if you compromise and hire someone mediocre, you will always regret it. If you compromise in the first 5-10 hires, it might kill the company. Only hire when you absolutely need to. The cost of getting an early hire wrong is so, so high. It wastes your time as an owner or CEO or leader, because now you're managing someone that maybe is not best fit, and it's taking away from your time of actually growing the company. And again, that best source by far for hiring when you are ready are people you already know, people you trust, people you have a relationship with that you know will work well. The other important note that I'll make is to consider hiring independent contractors rather than employees. There's a bunch that could be a whole other topic of conversation in itself, but there's a strategy there to, just hire as needed instead of actually bringing on a full-time employee and taking all the risks and responsibilities of having employees as well. The other thing too is if you do need to hire, look at grants. There's so many grants out there and amazing resources to give you money to help pay for employees and interns, which are a great way to start by growing your team, which is really important. But my last kind of comment is that Freshie, Matthew Korn from Freshie, he set a bunch of values for the company. And one of them was to build a killer culture, not a culture that kills. And I absolutely love that. And all credit and kudos to Matthew for coming up with that. I think it's super, super important to keep in mind when you're hiring employees to keep that culture in mind and make sure that it's a good fit. It's super, super important. And lastly, hire people you know or people that you refer to. Again, a great, great, great resource and tip. The last comment that I'll make is back to the fire fast. When it's okay to fire somebody if they're not the right fit, it's in the best interest for the company and for that person. So don't feel bad about letting someone go. I've had to do it, and it's not necessarily fun to do, but it's important to do for the business and for the success of the business. Okay, slowly wrapping up here, but wanted to give you some of my top tips for building your team, your rockstar team, and finding a co-founder. So a couple of my top tips. Number one, make sure everyone on your team is aligned with your mission and goals. Super, super important right from day one that you're aligned and that this is a focus and priority item for building your team. Number two, kind of relates to number one, but define and set your culture from day one. Set the mark right from day one so that there's no confusion, there's no miscommunication. Everyone knows walking into your team and your co-founder and your partnership what the expectations are and what that culture looks like, and there's no questions about it. Next is diversity. Diversity is real. It's been proven that diverse teams work and way better together. They're way more effective. They produce more higher quality of work. Diversity is a real thing. It's super important as you look for multiple co-founders or hiring employees to think and focus of diversity. Super, super important to focus on. Always have a pipeline of potential candidates. Always be looking and understanding and learning about people, and maybe they would be a great fit for to be on your team one day. So always kind of have that cycling pipeline. Super important to have. Look for people who are willing to learn and to grow. It's super important. Again, skills can be learned. If you have someone that's passionate, they're probably going to be a better fit than just someone that just checks the technical boxes. So keep that in mind. Retention is also just as important. Sometimes you think hiring is the hardest part. They're on your team, they're there now. Well, no, that's just the beginning. You now also have to think about retaining them. It goes back to that culture that you're building within your employees. And retention is just as important as hiring. Last two, hire slow, fire fast, could not be more true. And to trust your gut. You know what? We all have these gut instincts. And at the end of the day, trust them, because majority of the time they're going to be right. Don't go against your gut. Trust your gut. Make decisions from what you feel is best for you and for the company, and you'll build a great team. And I guess kind of my last top tip and takeaway is that tough times never last, but tough people do. Surround yourself with tough people that motivate and that inspire you, because at the end of the day, you can't do it alone. No matter what business you're building, if it really is going to be successful and scalable and big, you can't do it alone. And you want that support system, and you want those tough people around you to inspire you, to motivate you, to lift you up, and to help you get through and to accomplish some of that great work that you're set out to do. So I love that one as a reminder. Finally, as I say on every webinar, you cannot build a successful business with a flawed foundation. Super, super important. Your people are your greatest and most valuable asset of an organization, and they are that huge foundational piece of your business, and so, so important to get that right from day one in order to build a successful business. So what are today's key takeaways? First and foremost, as I just kind of mentioned, people are the most valuable asset of your organization. Treat them well. Build a killer culture, not a culture that kills. Co-founders and business partnerships are like a marriage. Date before you marry. Don't rush into it. It's a big decision. It's a big legal decision. Don't rush it. Find a co-founder you trust and that has complementary skills to you. Again, similar interests, but complementary skills. The best people to hire and partner with are the people that you already know. You've experienced what they're like in certain situations. It's the best place to start. Have those tough, important conversations early. Set expectations, define roles, responsibilities, and ownership right from day one. Fill your experience gaps and your industry knowledge with an advisory board. Great set of people to rely on, to bounce ideas off, and to have at the table to help you through some of those tough times. Define and set your company culture right from day one. Super, super important. And last but not least, trust your gut. Hire slow and fire fast. It could not be more true in terms of talking about building teams and building valuable teams and people and a culture and a company that's really set to grow and scale. Last thing that I would love to bring your attention to is the University of Winnipeg Business Administration Students Association, or BASA, is having a pitch it competition virtually on Zoom on Saturday, February 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is open to all students enrolled in a Manitoba post-secondary institution. I'm just going to throw the link here in the chat if you would like to learn more. But would highly encourage all of you. A lot of you on the call are entrepreneurs, as you mentioned in the poll. Definitely recommend checking them out. This competition out, you have a chance to win some great prizes. I believe it's cash that they're giving away for prizes, and to get some great feedback, as well as workshops and training leading up to the competition. So feel free to check that out, and wish you luck if you do register for it. Finally, we understand that as an entrepreneur, you can't do it alone, and there's so many great resources in the community to help you through your entrepreneurial journey. Some of the logos listed on the screen are some of our community partners at the Stu Clark Center. Happy to introduce you to any of them if you need an introduction, or if you have any questions about them, please come and see me or talk to any of us at the Stu Clark Center. But you're never alone, and no matter what stage you are at in the business planning cycle and your entrepreneurial journey, there's help and support for you here in Manitoba, and we're more than happy to help you find that support that you need. Final reminder, book your free venture coach meeting with me today on the website. The link is in the chat earlier. If you want feedback on your business plan and or whatever it is might be, if you just want to talk about entrepreneurship, if you just want to have a chat or talk really about anything entrepreneurship or building a team or where to look for your co-founder, more than happy to have that conversation with you. And remember, if you do so in the month of December, you will be automatically entered to win a $100 Starbucks gift card, which is awesome. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Before we get to Q&A, we really value feedback here, and would really love, there's an anonymous poll I'm going to launch. Would love for you to take 2 seconds just to answer these 3 quick questions. We really do value feedback and would love to hear what you think about, or thought about the webinar, and how it was for you, how valuable it was for you. So would really appreciate some responses. I'll give you a couple seconds to fill those out, and then we'll get to some Q&A sessions. Appreciate everyone who's answering the poll. Give you a few more seconds here. Cool, just about everyone's responded. Love it. 2 more seconds. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for providing your feedback. Really appreciate it. We really do look at that feedback and we'll use it. We want to make sure that these webinars are valuable for all of you and that we're providing valuable content. And yeah, the last thing that I'll mention before Q&A is stay tuned for the next year. We've got some exciting new webinar series and topics, including amazing guest speakers. Follow us on social media, stay up to date. We've got some great things planned for everyone. With that in mind, would love to answer any questions that anyone has in regards to this webinar or anything entrepreneurship related. So I'll invite Leah to come off mute here and let me know if there's anything in the chat.
Justin, sorry, my camera keeps going down on me. I'm sorry, you guys. I didn't see any questions in there.
I'm just seeing there's a couple private messages to me.
Yeah.
Let's see here. One of them is about the benefits of joining the Young Associates. Great question. Lots of benefits. the best benefit of joining the Young Associates is to meet and network with other young professionals and like-minded individuals in Manitoba. It's a great diverse group of young professionals in the community from all different experiences and businesses. There's kind of three pillars of the YA, and that's to connect, learn, and give back. So the connect pillar is really having events to connect and learn and network with others. To learn, the learn pillars, we host a lot of events and professional development events where you can learn about other cool stories and businesses in the community. You can learn about professional development related items too for you personally. And then the last one is to give back. We give back to the community. We give back to the business school. So it's a great organization from that perspective.
Any other questions?
I got a few more private ones here.
Okay.
If it's okay, I'm gonna answer them instead of typing them back because they could be valuable to everyone. When do we get the same networking opportunities as an Asper MBA student? Yes and no. You get great opportunities as an Asper MBA student, but the most important thing about networking is about not just networking in one place. It's about finding all the different networking options. A lot of MBA students have joined, for example, the Young Associates. So I would say from a networking perspective, join as many possible organizations as you can, and keep looking at different opportunities because every organization will provide some level of different opportunities than maybe what you're in to date.
Lindsay has also provided the Young Associates link on the chats if anybody is interested in pursuing that.
I see another question. It's a private question. What's your best way to battle doubt? That's a tough one to answer without kind of understanding the circumstance and what the doubt's about. For the individual that messaged me about that, please reach out and book a meeting with you. Happy to connect with you one-on-one to talk specifically about that and what that doubt might look like from your perspective. I'm a mature student, so still I can join. I'm assuming maybe that question is about the pitch competition. I'm not 100% sure. You could have to check out the rules and regulations, but from what I did read, any student or any individual that's enrolled in post-secondary education can still join the competition, if that's what you're referring to. If you were referring to the Young Associates, then yes, you as a mature student, you definitely can join too. I'll also make the comment that as a student, you do get a discounted Young Associates membership. So definitely you can try it out for a year and pay a reduced fee.
Maybe they could book a meeting, a one-on-one with you. Maybe let them know how they're able to do this and get in touch with you if they do have any questions after the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just seeing some more private messages here come in. But happy to connect one-on-one with any of you. We had the link in maybe Leah, you want to reshare the link in the chat
we'll bring it up again.
to connect and book with me, umanitoba.ca/entrepreneur. There's steps on that page to connect with me and to through Startup Tree where you can view my calendar and schedule and book in a meeting. So please, more than happy to meet with anyone one-on-one. And don't forget, you can win $100 Starbucks gift card. More private messages here. I am already a CPHR member. Wouldn't a membership in Young Associates be an overlap? No, nothing would be really an overlap with the YA membership. I'm more than happy to take that conversation offline too, if you want to talk specifically about what you're involved with and how the YA can benefit. But the YA is very unique in terms of its offering and what's available to you from a resource perspective in the community. So it wouldn't be a huge overlap. But I would also make the argument that even if there is some overlap, again, it's another network of people to connect with, an organization to belong with, another place to meet new people, to professionally develop and learn and connect and to give back. Another private question. In pitch 2021, could we just be an attendee rather than participating? Good question. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'm assuming you can. I'm assuming the finals will probably be open to maybe the public to watch, but that's just an assumption that I'm making. I could be wrong. So I would encourage you to, I put the link in the chat there just above to check out their website and their rules and regulations. I don't see any more private messages coming in. I hope I answered everyone's. Does anyone else have any other questions? Please drop them in the chat. If you don't, again, please feel free to book a one-on-one meeting with me. Happy to connect and talk about your business and your entrepreneurial journey one-on-one. If there are no other questions, that is totally cool. I want to just end by saying thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to those that joined us for majority of our webinars. Really excited to have had you all here and hope you found value in our webinar series. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the holiday season with your family, and look forward to hopefully seeing a lot of you in our winter webinar series come January. Stay tuned, follow us. We've got some exciting events and stuff lined up for you. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great day and look forward to staying connected.